I'm Rosetta, 32 years old, and I never thought I'd be sitting here telling you how my marriage fell apart. Adam seemed perfect, his wealthy family less so. When they forced a prenup on me saying, "This is Adam's house and you'll leave with nothing," I felt trapped. But fate works in mysterious ways. They had no idea that my surprise $22 million inheritance would change everything. Before I show you how their own prenup became their undoing, where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe to see how I turn the tables on my in-laws. I come from a hardworking middle-class family in Portland, Oregon. My parents taught me the value of earning my own way through life, which is why I pursued my passion for graphic design with such dedication. By 32, I had built a modest but respectable career at a marketing firm, creating designs for local businesses and the occasional national campaign. I met Adam Bennett at a charity gala I was attending because my company had donated design services. I was there representing our team, feeling somewhat out of place among the city's elite. Adam approached me while I was admiring a sculpture in the corner of the venue, away from the crowd. "Beautiful, isn't it?" His voice was warm and confident. "The artist uses negative space to represent emotional absence." I turned to see a tall, handsome man with kind blue eyes and an easy smile. "I was actually thinking the curved lines create a sense of movement that draws you in," I replied. Adam laughed, a genuine sound that made me smile instantly. "I stand corrected. You clearly know more about art than I do. I'm Adam Bennett." "Rosetta Collins," I replied, shaking his extended hand. Unlike the other wealthy people I'd encountered that evening, Adam seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts rather than just waiting for his turn to speak. We spent the next 2 hours discussing everything from Renaissance art to our favorite pizza toppings. He was 34, an architect from a prominent family, but there was nothing pretentious about him. Our connection was immediate and intense. Within a week, we were seeing each other nearly every day. Adam introduced me to exclusive restaurants I'd never have entered on my own, but he was equally enthusiastic about the small ethnic cafes I loved. We bonded over our shared appreciation for creativity and design. He showed me his architectural sketches. I shared my graphic designs. We both loved traveling, though his experiences were far more extensive than mine. "Someday I'll take you to this little village in Tuscany," he promised one night as we lay looking at the stars from a blanket in Washington Park. "The light there at sunset makes everything glow gold. You'd create amazing designs inspired by it." I should have noticed the signs earlier. When Adam took me to dinner with some of his friends, I caught the surprised looks they exchanged when he introduced me. One woman, clearly tipsy on expensive champagne, whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "Not his usual type, is she?" Then there was the time Adam's college roommate visited. When Adam stepped away, he looked at me with genuine concern. "You seem great, Rosetta. Just be careful. The Bennetts have expectations." But I was in love. Adam was different from his family, I told myself. He valued my creativity, my independence, my perspective. When he looked at me, I felt seen in a way I never had before. 8 months after we met, Adam proposed during a weekend trip to the coast. The ring was vintage platinum with a center diamond surrounded by sapphires that matched his eyes. "I know it hasn't been that long," he said, kneeling on the beach at sunset, "but I've never been more certain of anything. You make me want to be a better man, Rosetta. Will you marry me?" Tears streaming down my face, I said yes. That night, as we celebrated in our beachfront suite, Adam talked about our future home, the children, we might have the life we would build together. "My parents will come around," he promised when I expressed concern about their reaction. "They just need to get to know you. Once they see how happy you make me, they'll welcome you with open arms." I wanted so badly to believe him. And I did, right up until that first dinner with his parents, where the facade began to crack. We arrived at an upscale restaurant in the financial district. Richard and Diana Bennett were already seated, looking like they'd stepped out of a luxury lifestyle magazine. Richard, tall and distinguished with silver hair, stood to greet us with a firm handshake and assessing eyes. Diana, blonde and immaculately maintained, offered her cheek for Adam to kiss before giving me a quick, limp handshake. "So," Diana said after we ordered drinks, "Adam tells us you're in graphic arts." "Graphic design," I corrected gently. "I work for Horizon Marketing." "Interesting," she replied in a tone that suggested the opposite. And where did you attend university, dear? Portland State. I graduated with honors in visual communications. Richard and Diana exchanged a glance I couldn't quite interpret. A state school. How practical, Diana said. The Bennetts have attended Ivy League schools for generations. Adam went to Yale, of course. Mom, Adam said, though his voice lacked conviction. Rosetta's incredibly talented. Her design for the Westfield campaign increased their sales by 30%. That's lovely, Diana replied dismissively before changing the subject to people and places I'd never heard of. Throughout dinner, they asked pointed questions about my family. What did my father do? Where did we vacation? Did we belong to any clubs? With each answer, their disapproval became more evident, though always wrapped in polite smiles and, how interesting responses. As Adam drove us home, I was quiet. They just need time, he said, squeezing my hand. They've always had a specific idea of who I'd end up with. Someone from your social circle, I murmured. You're who I want, he insisted. They'll adjust their expectations. I nodded, choosing to believe him because the alternative was too painful to consider. But as we began planning our wedding, a small, persistent voice in the back of my mind wondered if Adam would truly stand by me against his family's wishes. The Bennett family mansion was exactly what you'd expect, from old money elites, a sprawling colonial-style estate in the most exclusive part of town, surrounded by manicured gardens and protected by an ornate iron gate. The first time Adam brought me there after our engagement, I felt like I'd stepped into another world, one where I clearly didn't belong. Richard Bennett had built his fortune in commercial real estate development, turning his father's modest company into a regional powerhouse. Every room in their home showcased their wealth through subtle demonstrations of taste and privilege, original artwork antiques with provenance, and family photographs featuring recognizable politicians and celebrities. Diana Bennett was a former debutante who now chaired the boards of various cultural institutions and charities. Always impeccably dressed and coiffed, she wielded social connections like weapons. She was never openly rude, but her condescension was wrapped in smiles and backhanded compliments. What a unique dress, Rosetta. So brave of you to wear something so colorful to a formal dinner. Our first major dinner at their home was ostensibly to celebrate our engagement, but it quickly turned into an interrogation about my background and family. And your parents have always lived in the same house in… What was that neighborhood again? Diana asked, wineglass delicately poised. Selwood, I answered. They bought it when they first married and paid it off last year. They're very proud of that. How quaint, Diana replied. Accomplishing something like that by, what does your father do again? He's a high school science teacher, I said, feeling my cheeks warm. And my mother manages a bookstore. Richard cleared his throat. Honest work, certainly, though it must have been challenging to provide you with advantages. They provided everything I needed, I said firmly. Of course they did, dear. Diana patted my hand. And look how far you've come. Almost unbelievable, really. I glanced at Adam, hoping he would defend me, or at least change the subject, but he was studying his plate. The Collins family may not have our financial resources, he finally said, but they've raised an amazing daughter. It wasn't exactly a strong defense, and Richard seized the opening. Speaking of financial resources, he said, swirling his scotch, it's important we discuss how family assets are protected across generations. The Bennett holdings are quite complex. Dad, not tonight, Adam said. These conversations are necessary, son. Marriage is as much a financial merger as an emotional one, especially for families like ours. I don't care about Adam's money, I interjected. I love him for who he is. Richard and Diana exchanged knowing smiles that made me feel naive. That's refreshingly idealistic, Richard said. But in our experience, appropriate matches tend to come from similar backgrounds. There's less adjustment required. After that uncomfortable dinner, I called my best friend Taylor. They basically called me a gold digger to my face, I told her, pacing my apartment. And Adam barely defended me. What did you expect from people who probably have their butler iron their socks? Taylor replied. The question is, did Adam stand up for you at all? Sort of. He told them I was amazing, but didn't directly challenge their assumptions. Red flag, honey. If he won't defend you now, it'll only get worse after marriage. When I confronted Adam about his parents' behavior, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. They're from a different generation, Rosetta. They express concern because they care about me. They treated me like I was trying to scam you. They'll come around once they know you better, he promised, pulling me close. My parents are set in their ways, but they ultimately want my happiness. I wanted to believe him, and for brief moments it seemed possible. Diana invited me to tea with some of her friends, though it felt more like an exhibition than inclusion. The women examined me like an exotic specimen, while asking questions about my unique upbringing. The engagement party at the Bennett estate was lavish, with over 200 guests, most of whom were connected to Adam's family. I knew only my parents' tailor and a few friends we'd invited. Throughout the evening, I was introduced as Adam's fiancée, rather than by my name, and conversations stopped awkwardly when I approached groups. Diana took over wedding planning almost immediately, dismissing my ideas as sweet but impractical. When I mentioned wanting wildflowers for my bouquet, she laughed. Darling, Bennett women carry roses. It's tradition. Besides, wildflowers are so unpredictable. We need something consistent with our aesthetic. Each time I tried to assert myself, Adam mediated by suggesting compromises that inevitably favored his mother's wishes. Slowly, the wedding was becoming an event I barely recognized, celebrating a union that seemed increasingly one-sided. Despite these warning signs, I continued forward. I loved Adam. He wasn't perfect, but neither was I. Families are complicated, I told myself. We would work through these issues together. Then came the family meeting that changed everything. 1 month before our wedding, Richard called Adam to arrange what he termed a family financial discussion. Adam told me about it casually over breakfast, as if it were a normal pre-wedding formality. Dad wants to go over some paperwork tomorrow evening. Just legal stuff about the trust and family holdings. Should I be there? I asked. Actually, yes. Dad specifically mentioned you should come. See, they're starting to include you in family matters. I felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps they were finally accepting me as Adam's future wife. I wore a conservative navy blue dress to the meeting, hoping to make a good impression. The Bennett family lawyer James Whitford was already seated in Richard's wood-paneled home office when we arrived. The heavy mahogany desk and leather-bound books created an atmosphere of intimidating authority. Diana sat primly in a corner armchair, a small smile playing at her lips. Rosetta, Adam, please sit. Richard gestured to the chairs facing the desk. As you know, marriage is a significant life event that requires proper financial planning. I nodded, expecting a discussion about joint bank accounts, or perhaps information about Adam's trust fund that I'd heard mentioned, but knew little about. The Bennett family has substantial assets accumulated over generations, Richard continued. It's our responsibility to protect these assets for future generations. James has prepared the necessary paperwork. The lawyer slid a thick document across the desk. This is a standard prenuptial agreement that outlines the financial terms in case the marriage should not succeed. My blood ran cold as I stared at the document. Adam had never once mentioned a prenup. I looked at him questioningly, but he avoided my gaze. Go ahead, review it, Richard encouraged with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. With trembling hands, I began reading. The legal language was dense, but certain phrases jumped out with crystal clarity. All properties titled to Adam Bennett shall remain his separate property. In the event of divorce, dissolution, or annulment, Rosetta Collins shall make no claim to any Bennett family assets. Upon termination of the marriage, Rosetta Collins shall vacate any residence owned by Adam Bennett or the Bennett family within 30 days. The implications were unmistakable. If our marriage ended, I would walk away with absolutely nothing, not even the right to stay in our home temporarily. This stipulates that I get nothing, I said quietly, and that I'd be immediately homeless if we divorced. Those terms are quite standard, James replied smoothly. The agreement simply maintains the separation of premarital assets. It's just Adam's house after all, Diana added with a dismissive wave. Surely you understand we must protect family properties. Did you know about this? I asked Adam directly. He shifted uncomfortably. I knew Dad wanted a prenup. I didn't know the specific terms. This is simply about protecting family assets, Richard explained in a patronizing tone. Nothing personal, Rosetta, just good business. All our family members sign similar agreements before marriage. Exactly. Diana smiled coldly. If you truly love Adam for himself and not his money as you've claimed signing, this should be no issue whatsoever. The room seemed to spin around me. I felt ambushed, humiliated, and betrayed. The prenup wasn't just about money. It was a statement that I was not truly being accepted into their family. I was an outsider who might need to be expelled at any moment with nothing to show for my time as a Bennett. I need some time to think about this, I managed to say. The wedding is in a month, Richard reminded me. We'll need this resolved well before then. As soon as we got to Adam's car, I exploded. How could you let them blindside me like that? A prenup that says I get absolutely nothing, that I'd be thrown out of our home. It's just legal formality, Rosetta, Adam said defensively. It doesn't mean anything because we're never going to get divorced. If it doesn't mean anything, why have it at all? Because that's how things are done in families like mine. Everyone signs them. My sister signed one when she married Brad. Your sister married a neurosurgeon from another wealthy family. It's completely different. Look, I didn't know all the specific terms. Okay, Dad handles the legal side of family matters. You're 34 years old, Adam. This is our marriage, not your father's business deal. You're overreacting. The prenup is standard protection. If you're not planning to divorce me, why does it matter? His dismissiveness cut deeper than the prenup itself. He couldn't or wouldn't understand how demeaning the whole situation felt. I'm considering calling off the wedding, I said quietly when we reached my apartment. Adam's face went pale. You can't be serious. Over some legal document we'll never need to use. It's not about the document, it's about the message behind it. Your family thinks I'm after your money, and you didn't even defend me. Adam switched tactics, his voice softening as he took my hands. Rosetta, I love you. More than anything. Please don't let my parents' old-fashioned views ruin what we have. Once we're married, things will be different, I promise. If you love me, stand up to them. Tell them we won't sign that insulting document. I can't do that, he admitted. The family trust requires it. But I swear to you it will never matter because I will always take care of you. We're going to be together forever. For 3 days, I agonized over the decision. Taylor urged me to run as fast as I could. My parents expressed concern, but said they would support whatever choice I made. In the end, my love for Adam overpowered my misgivings. I told myself the prenup was meaningless because our marriage would last. I convinced myself that over time I would win Richard and Diana over. The signing itself was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. We met in James Whitford's downtown office, the space as cold and unwelcoming as the agreement itself. My own lawyer, the only one I could afford on short notice, had advised against signing, but acknowledged it was my choice. Diana wore an expression of smug satisfaction as I signed each page. Richard nodded approvingly. Adam squeezed my hand and whispered, I love you. Thank you for doing this. What I didn't realize then was that I'd just signed away more than financial security. I had surrendered my power in the relationship and signaled to the Bennetts that I could be controlled. It was a mistake that would take me 2 years and an unexpected inheritance to correct. After a picture-perfect honeymoon on Italy's Amalfi Coast, Adam and I returned to begin our married life together. For 2 weeks in Italy with Adam's parents thousands of miles away, I had convinced myself everything would be fine. He was attentive, loving, and spoke excitedly about our future together. The prenup seemed like a distant, unpleasant memory. Reality hit when we returned home. Adam had told me his parents had purchased a house for us as a wedding gift, which I'd initially found generous, despite my discomfort with such an expensive present. What he hadn't mentioned was that the house was titled not in our names, but in Richard and Diana's family trust with Adam as a beneficiary. It's just a tax strategy, Adam explained when I discovered this during our first week back. It doesn't change anything practically. We live here, it's our home. But it wasn't our home, not really, as became increasingly clear. Diana had her own set of keys, which she used frequently and without warning. I'd be working in my home office when I'd hear the front door open, followed by Diana's voice calling out, "Just me, darlings." The first time she rearranged our living room furniture while I was out grocery shopping, I was shocked but tried to be understanding. "I thought the seating arrangement would better facilitate conversation," she explained when I returned to find everything moved. "The flow is much better now, don't you think?" When I gently suggested she might ask before making changes to our home, Adam later pulled me aside. "Mom was just trying to help. She has an excellent eye for design." "That's not the point, Adam. It's about boundaries. She's family Rosetta. Bennetts don't have boundaries with family." That became abundantly clear as weeks turned into months. Diana would drop by with decorators to discuss changing the paint colors. Richard would inspect the property, pointing out maintenance issues and questioning our care of their investment. Even more troubling was Richard's constant commentary about finances. Though I continued working at my design job and contributed to our household expenses, it was never enough in his eyes. "When is Rosetta going to start pulling her weight financially?" he asked Adam during a family dinner as if I weren't sitting right there. "That little design job can't contribute much to your lifestyle." Instead of defending me, Adam shifted uncomfortably. "We're doing fine, Dad. You should be doing better than fine. A Bennett should be thriving. Has she considered a career with more upside potential?" These comments increased in frequency, and I noticed Adam beginning to echo his father's sentiments. "Maybe you should look for a position at a larger firm," he suggested one evening, "something with better advancement opportunities." "I like my job," I replied. "I have creative freedom and respect there." "But the money is limited," he countered. "If we want to maintain a certain lifestyle—" "The lifestyle your parents want for us, you mean?" Over time, Adam became more controlling about finances. He questioned my purchases, even small ones like a new sketchbook or lunch with Taylor. Meanwhile, he spent freely on golf club memberships and business dinners. 6 months into our marriage, I discovered Adam had a separate bank account I knew nothing about. When confronted, he dismissed my concerns. "It's just for family investments. Dad set it up years ago." "Shouldn't I know about all our accounts as your wife?" "It's not relevant to our daily finances. It's Bennett business." I began keeping a journal documenting all these concerning behaviors initially as a way to process my feelings. But as Adam grew more controlling and more aligned with his parents' views, I recognized it might someday serve another purpose. The prenup became a weapon wielded during disagreements. If I objected to Diana's intrusions or Richard's financial judgments, Adam would sigh heavily. "You knew what you were signing up for," he would say. "The house belongs to the family trust. If you're not happy with the arrangement—" The threat was always implicit. "Remember the prenup. Remember you have no claim here. Remember you can be removed." I grew increasingly isolated. Adam discouraged me from spending time with Taylor, who he claimed was negative, and trying to cause problems between us. My parents lived 2 hours away, and visits became less frequent as Adam always had reasons why proposed dates wouldn't work. Meanwhile, Diana insisted I attend her charity functions, where I was paraded as Adam's wife but never truly included in conversations. I was expected to be grateful for the opportunity to be in such elevated company. One evening, after a particularly difficult charity gala where Diana had criticized everything from my dress to my conversational skills, Adam and I had our worst fight yet. "Your mother publicly humiliated me," I said, tears streaming down my face. "She's trying to help you fit in," Adam insisted. "You're too sensitive." "Fit in? I've been trying to fit in for over a year. Nothing I do is ever good enough for your family." "Maybe if you tried harder to understand our world instead of fighting it constantly." I stared at him suddenly, seeing with perfect clarity how much he had changed, or perhaps how much he had simply revealed his true self. "I don't recognize you anymore," I whispered. "I'm the same person I've always been," he replied coldly. "Maybe you're finally seeing clearly." That night, as Adam slept beside me, I lay awake wondering how I could have been so blind. The charming, supportive man I fell in love with had been replaced by someone who prioritized his parents' approval over his wife's happiness. I was trapped in a gilded cage with the prenup as the lock on the door. or so I thought until an unexpected phone call changed everything. It was an ordinary Tuesday when my life took its extraordinary turn. I was working from home when my cell phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail, assuming it was a telemarketer, but something compelled me to answer. "Is this Rosetta Collins Bennett?" a formal male voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "My name is Marcus Lawson. I'm an attorney with Lawson and Williams in Boston. I'm calling regarding your Uncle Gerald Collins." Uncle Gerald was my father's brother, a brilliant but eccentric man who had distanced himself from the family decades ago. I had met him only a handful of times as a child, and he hadn't attended my wedding. "I'm sorry to inform you that your uncle passed away last month," Mr. Lawson continued. "As his attorney, I'm handling the execution of his will." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied, genuinely saddened despite our limited relationship. "My father didn't mention it. According to our records, there's been no contact between your uncle and any family members for over 15 years. He was quite private about his affairs." "I see," I said, wondering why this lawyer was calling me specifically. "The reason for my call, Mrs. Bennett, is that your Uncle Gerald named you as his sole heir." I nearly dropped the phone. There must be some mistake. We barely knew each other. "There's no mistake. Mr. Collins followed your career from afar. He kept a file of your design work and was apparently quite impressed with your talent and work ethic. He explicitly stated in his will that he was leaving his estate to you because you forged your own path without relying on others." "His estate?" I echoed weakly. "Yes. Your uncle was an early investor in several technology companies that became quite successful. He lived very modestly despite his wealth. The total value of his estate after taxes is approximately $22 million. The room seemed to spin around me. $22 million. It was an incomprehensible amount of money. "This can't be real," I whispered. "I assure you it's quite real, Mrs. Bennett. I'll be sending documents for you to sign. Once the probate process is complete, the assets will be transferred to accounts in your name. Would you prefer to come to Boston to discuss this in person, or shall we handle it remotely?" We arranged a video conference for the following day, and I hung up in a state of shock. $22 million. More money than I could have imagined. More money than Adam's annual salary. Possibly more than the Bennett family home was worth. My first instinct was to call Adam and share the incredible news. My hand actually reached for the phone before a sudden clarity stopped me. What would happen if the Bennetts knew about this inheritance? Would Richard find a way to control it through Adam? Would Diana suddenly decide I was worthy of respect? The prenup. What did it say about inheritances received during the marriage? I sat down at my computer and pulled out the copy of the prenuptial agreement I had stored in my desk. With trembling hands, I began reading through the legal jargon more carefully than I had before signing it. There it was in Section 7.3. Any inheritance or gift received by either party during the marriage shall remain the separate property of the recipient spouse and shall not be subject to division in the event of divorce, dissolution, or annulment. The prenup that was designed to protect the Bennetts' assets from me would also protect my inheritance from them. I closed the document and took a deep breath. For the first time since signing that agreement, I felt a sense of power returning to me. I needed to be strategic now. I called Taylor from my personal cell phone, one Adam didn't check. "Can you meet me at Riverside Cafe in an hour? It's important, and I can't talk about it at home." Over coffee in a back corner of the quiet cafe, I told Taylor everything. "Holy shit," she whispered when I finished. $22 million. I can hardly believe it myself, but Taylor, I need advice. I don't want Adam or his family to know yet." "Damn right you don't. Those vultures would swoop in so fast. What are you thinking of doing?" "I'm not sure yet, but this changes everything. For the first time, I have options." "You need a lawyer," Taylor said firmly. "Not just any lawyer. You need a shark." Through a colleague at her accounting firm, Taylor connected me with Catherine Zhao, one of the top divorce attorneys in the city. I made an appointment for the following week, telling Adam I was meeting a potential new client. Catherine's office was sleek and minimalist, projecting quiet confidence and success. After I explained my situation in detail, she reviewed the prenuptial agreement. "This is actually very interesting," she said, looking up from the document. This prenup was clearly drafted to protect the Bennett assets, but it contained standard language about keeping inheritances separate. They never anticipated you might receive a significant inheritance. So my uncle's money is protected. Absolutely. Based on this agreement, your inheritance is your separate property, not marital property. They can't touch it. What about divorce? I asked quietly. Catherine studied me for a moment. Are you considering ending your marriage? I don't know yet, but I need to understand my options. She nodded. The prenup is quite clear. You would leave the marriage with your personal property and your inheritance. You would need to vacate any residence owned by the Bennetts within 30 days. So I'd need my own place. Yes, and I would advise securing that before initiating any divorce proceedings. Over the following weeks, I developed a careful plan with Catherine's guidance. First, I established new bank accounts at a different bank than the one Adam and his family used. When the inheritance cleared probate, the funds would be transferred there. Second, I began documenting even more meticulously the controlling behaviors of Adam and his parents. I installed a small security camera in our living room, legally recording conversations that occurred there. What I captured was illuminating. During one of Richard and Diana's visits, while I was supposedly at a work event, I recorded Richard saying to Adam, "She signed it without much fight. She'll never get a penny of our money." Adam's response chilled me to the bone. "She's manageable. That's why I chose her over Jessica. Jess would have had her lawyer dissect that prenup for weeks." Diana laughed. "At least Jessica came from the right background. This one is so clearly a gold digger who didn't find any gold." "It's fine, Mother," Adam replied. "She knows her place now." Each recording strengthened my resolve. The loving husband I thought I had married didn't exist. Perhaps he never had. With Taylor's help, I began discreetly looking for a new home. I found a beautiful modern house across town, paid cash using part of my inheritance, and titled it solely in my name. I set up utilities and had essential furniture delivered, all while maintaining appearances at home with Adam. I also began exploring business opportunities. With my design background, I could start my own firm, but I needed to lay the groundwork carefully before making any public moves. As these preparations progressed, I continued playing the role of the dutiful Bennett wife. I attended Diana's charity functions without complaint. I accepted Richard's financial lectures with a meek nod. I pretended not to notice when Adam checked my personal credit card statements or questioned my whereabouts. All the while, my exit strategy was coming together piece by piece. Catherine prepared divorce papers waiting for my signal to proceed. Taylor helped move personal items I couldn't bear to lose to my new house. I opened a new cell phone account Adam couldn't access. After nearly 3 months of preparations, the moment that crystallized my decision came during a Bennett family dinner. Richard had invited us over to discuss expanding the family business and including Adam in more significant development projects. "Now that you're taking on more responsibility," Richard said to Adam over brandy, "you'll need to work even harder. The Bennett name demands excellence." "Adam already works 60-hour weeks," I noted. Diana dismissed my comment with a wave. "A man builds his legacy through his work and his children." She fixed me with a pointed look. "Speaking of which, isn't it time you two started a family? Adam isn't getting any younger." "We're not ready yet," I said carefully. "Ready," Diana scoffed. "One is never ready. You simply do your duty to the family." "Perhaps Rosetta is focused on her little design job," Richard interjected, "though I can't imagine why, given its limitations." "Rosetta understands the importance of family," Adam said, not meeting my eyes. "We've discussed children. It's just a matter of timing." We had indeed discussed children and had agreed to wait at least 3 years. Yet here was Adam undermining our private decision to appease his parents. Later that evening, I overheard Adam on the phone with his father in his home office. "Don't worry about Rosetta," he was saying. "I'm handling her. She'll come around to the idea of children soon. I know how to manage her expectations." That night, I finalized my plans. The next day, I called Catherine and told her to prepare for our own family meeting. It was time to show the Bennetts exactly what their precious prenup had accomplished. I carefully orchestrated what would be my final performance as a Bennett. I asked Adam to invite his parents over for dinner, suggesting we should discuss Richard's proposal about the family business expansion. Adam readily agreed, pleased by my apparent interest in Bennett affairs. The day before our dinner, I moved the last of my personal items to my new home. I had Catherine file the divorce papers that morning with instructions to deliver Adam's copy during our dinner. I arranged for a security service to be present out of sight, but available if needed. Given the Bennetts' connections and vindictive nature, I wasn't taking any chances. I prepared a beautiful meal, Adam's favorite beef Wellington, with roasted vegetables and an expensive wine from the cellar Richard had stocked for us. Everything had to appear normal until the moment of truth. Richard and Diana arrived promptly at 7, Diana bringing an unwanted floral arrangement that she immediately placed at the center of my carefully set table. "The colors you chose were a bit stark, dear," she explained with her usual condescension. "This softens the presentation." I smiled and thanked her, knowing it would be the last time I would have to pretend gratitude for her interference. Throughout the appetizer course, Richard dominated the conversation, with talk of new property acquisitions and development strategies. Adam nodded eagerly at his father's plans, occasionally throwing me glances, as if to gauge my reaction. "You're unusually quiet tonight, Rosetta," Diana observed as I served the main course. "Feeling unwell?" "Actually, I've never felt better," I replied honestly. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about family and future." "Well, that's encouraging," Richard said clearly, assuming I was coming around to their perspective. The doorbell rang just as we finished the main course. "Are we expecting someone else?" Adam asked with a frown. "Actually, yes," I said, standing to answer it. "I've invited someone to join our discussion." I returned with a courier who handed an envelope directly to Adam. "What's this?" he asked, confusion clouding his features as the courier departed. "Why don't you open it and find out?" I suggested calmly. Adam tore open the envelope and pulled out the legal documents inside. His face paled as he read the heading, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage." "What the hell is this?" he demanded, his voice rising. Richard snatched the papers from Adam's hands, his expression darkening as he skimmed the contents. "You're filing for divorce after everything we've done for you." Diana's voice was shrill with indignation. "Yes," I said simply. "Our marriage is over." Adam stood so abruptly his chair crashed to the floor behind him. "You can't do this." "I already have." "Is there someone else?" he demanded, face flushing with anger. "No, Adam. There's just the truth I finally accepted. This marriage was never an equal partnership. I was never truly welcome in this family." "This is absurd," Richard interjected. Adam called James immediately. "We'll fight this." "Before you start planning your legal strategy," I said calmly, "there are a few things you should know." I walked to the living room and retrieved my laptop, opening it on the dining table. "First, let me share some home movies I've been collecting." I played several clips from my security camera, Richard and Diana making derogatory comments about me in my own home, Adam agreeing with them, the three of them discussing how the prenup ensured I would leave with nothing. "You recorded us," Diana gasped. "That's illegal." "Actually, it's not," I corrected her. "Single-party consent is the law in this state for recordings in private residences. I consented to recording conversations in my own home." Adam's face had gone from red to ashen. "Rosetta, whatever you heard, it wasn't what you think." "I think it was exactly what it sounded like," I replied evenly. "But that's not all I wanted to discuss today." I closed the laptop and looked directly at Richard. "You were so proud of that prenuptial agreement, weren't you? The ironclad document that would protect all the Bennett assets from the gold digger who didn't find any gold." Richard's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "The thing is," I continued, "you were so focused on protecting yourselves that you never considered the agreement works both ways." "What are you talking about?" Adam demanded. "Section 7.3 of our prenuptial agreement states that any inheritance received by either party during the marriage remains the separate property of that individual and is not subject to division in divorce." Diana waved her hand dismissively. "What inheritance? Your parents can barely afford their mortgage." "Not my parents, my Uncle Gerald Collins, my father's brother. He passed away recently and named me his sole heir." "And what did you inherit? A used car and a collection of science fiction novels?" Diana snickered. $22 million, I stated flatly. The room went completely silent. I could almost see the calculations running behind their eyes as the amount registered. That's not possible," Adam finally stammered. It's not only possible, it's fact. Uncle Gerald was an early investor in several tech companies. He lived modestly but accumulated substantial wealth, and he left it all to me. You're lying, Richard accused. My attorney has all the documentation. The funds have already cleared probate and are in accounts bearing only my name. Accounts, I might add, that according to our prenup, Adam has no claim to whatsoever. Adam's expression transformed from shock to calculation. Rosetta, darling, we should discuss this privately. We can work through any issues. The sudden shift in his tone was almost comical. The endearment, darling, so obviously false it made my skin crawl. There's nothing to discuss. The divorce is happening. This is ridiculous. Diana stood up, her perfect composure finally cracking. Adam, do something. $22 million, Adam repeated, as if trying to grasp the concept. And you're walking away from our marriage. From me? Think about what you're doing. I have thought about it extensively. That's why I've already moved out. Moved out? Adam looked genuinely confused. Where would you go? To my new home, purchased with cash titled solely in my name. You can't just leave. Richard's authoritative voice had an edge of panic now. The prenuptial agreement states that I must vacate any residence owned by Adam or the Bennett family within 30 days of filing for divorce. I finished for him. But I've already done that. As of this morning, I no longer live here. This is some kind of manipulation, Diana accused. Some ploy to get Adam to tear up the prenup. I laughed, genuinely amused. I don't want the prenup torn up. In fact, I insist it be enforced to the letter. It's the prenup that protects my inheritance from all of you. The irony seemed to hit Richard first. The document he had so smugly forced upon me, designed to ensure I would leave with nothing, now protected my fortune from his son. Surely we can come to some arrangement, he began, his tone suddenly conciliatory. Families should work things out together. We're not family, I replied calmly. You made that abundantly clear from the beginning. I was never good enough, never from the right background, never truly a Bennett, just a gold digger who didn't find any gold, right? Diana had the grace to look uncomfortable at hearing her own words quoted back to her. People say things they don't mean. Adam tried reaching for my hand across the table. We can start over. I love you, Rosetta. I pulled my hand away. No, Adam. You love the idea of a wife who would never challenge you. Someone manageable, I believe was the term you used. He flinched at that confirmation that he remembered the conversation I'd recorded. The divorce will proceed, I continued. Catherine Zhao is my attorney. I believe you know her reputation, Richard. Richard's expression confirmed that he did indeed know Catherine, whose shark-like efficiency in high-asset divorces was legendary. This is how it's going to work, I explained, standing up to signal the end of our dinner. I'll leave tonight. Adam can stay in the house until the divorce is final, as it belongs to your family trust. I want nothing from the Bennetts, just as you wanted nothing from me, except obedience. The prenup ensures we both get exactly what we wanted. You'll regret this. Diana threatened, her perfect facade completely shattered. We have influence in this city. Now, I reminded her, $22 million buys quite a lot of influence. And unlike you, I'm not afraid to start over if necessary. I could move anywhere, begin any business I choose. I walked to the entryway and opened the front door. I believe our dinner is concluded. My security team is outside if you need assistance finding your way out. Security team, Adam sputtered. Just a precaution. I've learned from your family that one should always protect one's assets. They left in stunned silence, Richard practically dragging Diana, who seemed on the verge of a very unladylike outburst. Adam lingered, a mixture of anger, confusion, and calculation playing across his face. This isn't over, he said quietly. It is for me, I replied, closing the door behind them. As I walked to my car where Taylor was waiting to drive me to my new home, I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation. The prenup that was meant to trap me had become the key to my freedom. The family that had demeaned me would now watch as I built a life they couldn't touch or control. And Adam, who had chosen me because I was manageable, would learn that some women refuse to be managed no matter how gilded the cage. 6 months have passed since that night at the Bennett house, and I can honestly say I've never felt more at peace. My new home, A contemporary craftsman-style house overlooking a small lake has become my sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows bring natural light into my studio, where I've begun creating the most inspired work of my career. The first few weeks after leaving were challenging. The Bennets did try to fight the divorce, claiming I had concealed the inheritance intentionally. Catherine demolished their arguments with brutal efficiency, pointing out that I had only learned of the inheritance months after signing the prenup, and that Adam and his family had concealed far more significant assets before our marriage. The judge was not impressed by Richard's attempts to use his influence. When they realized the legal approach wasn't working, Adam tried emotional manipulation. He sent flowers, tearful voicemails, even showed up at my door claiming he couldn't live without me. But the recordings I had collected revealed his true character too clearly for his act to be effective. Each desperate attempt only confirmed I had made the right choice. Diana took a different approach, spreading rumors in her social circles that I was mentally unstable, that I had cheated, that I was a con artist who had manipulated poor Adam. It might have worked if I had cared about maintaining my position in their elite world, but I didn't. I was building something new. With part of my inheritance, I launched my own design studio, focusing on projects I truly believed in. I hired talented designers who had been overlooked by the major firms, creating a collaborative environment where creativity was valued over connections. Within months, we secured contracts with innovative companies who appreciated our fresh approach. The irony wasn't lost on me that Richard had constantly belittled my little design job. Yet now my firm was competing for projects against companies the Bennets had long-standing relationships with. Several times we won those contracts, our innovative designs preferred over the traditional approaches. Healing from the emotional damage wasn't as straightforward as the professional success. I began working with a therapist to process the manipulation and gaslighting I had endured. Gradually, I recognized how my own insecurities had made me vulnerable to Adam's charm and his family's tactics. I learned to trust my instincts again, to recognize genuine connections. Taylor remained my rock throughout the process, never once saying "I told you so," despite having warned me from the beginning. My parents, relieved to have their daughter back, provided the unconditional love I had missed during my time with the Bennets. The contrast between their warmth and Diana's cold criticism couldn't have been more stark. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was enjoying dinner at a new restaurant downtown when I noticed a man at the bar looking my way. He was attractive in an understated way, with kind eyes and an easy smile that reminded me of Adam when we first met. My guard immediately went up. As he approached my table, I prepared to politely decline whatever line he was about to deliver. "Excuse me," he said, his voice warm but respectful. "You're Rosetta Collins, aren't you, the founder of Spectrum Design Studio?" Surprised, I nodded. "I'm Daniel Mercer. My company just moved into the East Side Tech Center that your firm designed. The collaborative spaces are brilliant. I've never seen our team so energized by their environment." We ended up talking for hours. Daniel was a software engineer who had built his company from the ground up, no family money or connections. He asked thoughtful questions about my design philosophy and actually listened to the answers. When he suggested meeting again, I surprised myself by saying yes. Over the following weeks, Daniel and I developed a connection based on mutual respect and genuine interest. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give, understanding, without being told that I was recovering from a difficult relationship. When I finally shared my story, his reaction was perfect. "The Bennets didn't just lose a daughter-in-law," he said. "They lost someone who could have brought something fresh and valuable to their family. Their loss, definitely not yours." I'm not rushing into another relationship, but Daniel shows me every day what healthy interaction looks like. There's no manipulation, no subtle put-downs, no expectations that I should be grateful for his attention. The greatest lesson from my experience with the Bennets isn't about money or prenups or revenge. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to accept treatment that diminishes it. The prenup they forced on me was meant to keep me small, contained, and controllable. Instead, it became the instrument of my liberation. If you're in a relationship where you're constantly made to feel inadequate, where your voice is silenced, where your worth is measured by compliance rather than character, know that you deserve better. Sometimes the very chains others forge to bind you can become the tools that set you free. I look out now at the lake behind my home, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink. My life isn't perfect, but it's authentically mine. No one else controls the narrative anymore. I sign my own name to my own story. Have you ever had to stand up to people who underestimated you? How did it change your life? Share your story in the comments below. And if you found something valuable in my experience, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of people who refuse to be diminished by others. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the prenup they think will leave you with nothing becomes the very thing that protects everything.